honestly, it's made me quite uneasy. I feel very nervous today. Football players, I feel like we almost have this unwritten oath when you're in a team that togetherness, what happens in that dressing room, in your bubble, that stays within that team. I thought that was almost like a mic drop moment for Sonia Bompastor.
We've done a very good job here of talking about all things other than Mary Earps and Hannah Hampton, which has dominated the news cycle for the last probably 72 hours. And if you've been following along with women's football for a while, this is not something that has maybe necessarily jumped out just since Mary Earps has announced she's releasing a book this week, but it's definitely been on the minds of a lot of people since Mary announced her international retirement. Lots of people have wanted to have a say since. Lots of people have had lots of different opinions. And I think maybe, Ellen, the first thing that we should potentially look at here is how this discourse has played out around a subject matter that is, to a lot of people, probably quite precious, around the idea of being a part of that Lionesses squad, a squad that is also very close-knit as well.
Yeah, I've been, I've obviously seen everything, watched everything, read a lot of things as well. And I feel like it's made me quite uneasy. I feel very nervous today because I feel like I've got, and all the Lionesses and football players, I feel like we almost have this unwritten oath when you're in a team that togetherness, what happens in that dressing room, in and amongst training, in your bubble, that stays within that team and that environment. So I feel a little bit uneasy of what has been spoken about by Mary Earps. But then I also feel like she's also my teammate, so I feel a lot of kind of sadness at the same time, that I want to help at the same time. So it's challenging for me because I was there in 2022 and I would protect my team with my life, and I would never go into what happened within that environment. That's not for me to speak about. And Mary's, gone into what she wanted to about that environment and post 2022 as well. What I would say is when Sarina came in, we built this culture and philosophy and togetherness and that family-like feel that it felt unbreakable and it felt so beautiful at the same time. And 2022 was so important for us that we never let anything come in between us and that bubble and that winning mentality. And I love that about football. I love what football brings for that. Just that unwritten oath of togetherness and just how you are a family, and nothing will penetrate that. And it just feels like that's been penetrated a little bit, and it's quite hard to take. You build everlasting relationships. You've created memories, whether they were good or bad, together in a team. And, in any workplace, walk of life, you're not going to get on with everyone. But what a boring life that must be if we're all the same. Everyone's different, and that's why it makes it so special, and that's why being part of a team is so unique, is that everyone is different and everybody brings something different, but you're not necessarily going to get on with everyone, but you respect everyone and you love everyone because what they bring makes your team better. And for me being part of a number of teams, but say in particular 2022, all 23 of those players enabled us to win the Euros. Everyone. And that environment that we created together, we won the Euros. Like it's mental. And yes, we didn't all get on, but we had that family-like feel that, we would do anything for each other and we'd fight for each other. But everything is in that bubble. and nothing escapes that bubble. So that's what makes it quite, challenging for me, and that's why it makes me quite nervous to talk about it, because it's just it's like sacred, that environment.
If you have missed this over the course of the last few days, and I'm sure the vast majority of people listening to this pod will know exactly the quotes we're talking about, but there was a claim from Mary that Sarina Wiegman was rewarding bad behaviour by recalling Hannah Hampton to the squad, having previously dropped her for being disruptive and unreliable. Now, what's interesting with this is that goalkeepers are in a very specific group. If you've never watched a professional team train, you will see basically teams will come out to warm up, and pretty much from moment one, in fact, before moment one, the goalkeepers come out on their own before the players. On match days, on training sessions, they come out and do their own thing and maybe join in at certain points. But in the most part, and they're in their own little group, which is, I guess, part of the reason why we call it the GK Union. Yeah,
it's such a unique dynamics, I would say, having what would normally be 3 goalkeepers and a goalkeeper coach, and they would go off and do their own training session. But I think what makes them so unique is essentially you've got the number 1 goalkeeper or the number 2 goalkeeper training each other. So their distribution, so say if they were doing passes, they were doing volleys, they were shooting, you are essentially training your number 1 goalkeeper as a number 2, and vice versa. The number 1 is training the number 2 or the number 3. So it's such a unique dynamic. So you have to have absolute quality for both of you to challenge each other, and a competitive environment. And, me, Jen, you've done football training, Ben. Sometimes you have off days. Sometimes I was absolutely atrocious in training, and I couldn't
Those were most of my days.
I couldn't pass a ball or hit a barn door. And that's what happens. It's emotions, you have ups and downs, but that GK Union is very unique, that you're in such close quarters that, you are training each other, and, emotions are high, especially when you are 1 and 2 goalkeepers. And, we've seen it in the media. It was very, very, spoken about a lot when Sarina Wiegman didn't pick, Hannah Hampton after the Euros in 2022. And Hannah went away and worked on her personal growth, development, learning. I've known Hannah for a number of years, and I've really tried to take her under my wing, and I saw the potential. I saw how good she was, and she just needed a little bit of guidance. And I think in our world as human beings, people deserve second chances, and boy, did she grab that second chance. We've seen what's happened, and that's what I've taken, is that people deserve second chances, and it is a unique dynamics being a goalkeeper. It is different to being an outfield player, but that's the nature of elite sport at the end of the day, and that's why managers are paid the big bucks and they're in those roles, is that they have to make those big decisions. Who is your number 1 goalie and who is your number 2? And sorry to keep talking, but Jen, that if you are the starting player, if you're number 1, if you're a number 5 or 6, which Jen was, if you're a 9, and you get an injury, if you dip in form, there's someone waiting in the wings to come in and take your shirt, and they will grab it, and they might take advantage of that. And now you have to do everything possible to try and get back in. But sometimes it's not possible, because they are another level then. They are improving, and the manager likes them now. They're fitting into the system. And that's what happens in elite sport and an elite environment. And that's why, for instance, Sarina Wiegman has won 3 European trophies back to back, because she is one of, if not the best manager out there. I feel like there's very few managers that can give you honest and clear clarity in their decision making. There's so many players out there that maybe aren't selected, aren't picked for a certain tournament, a game, go seasons without playing, and they have no communication whatsoever of what they've done wrong or what they need to improve on. But having that clarity and that level of communication in Sarina Wiegman was so good at that. And we craved that at England. We were crying out for someone to come in who was honest, who had a winning mentality, who had pure clarity and had a level of communication that was so high and so I can't think of the word, but yeah, just the level of communication was something so superior that we've never experienced before. And especially as women, we really like honesty, but sometimes honesty can be brutal. It can be hard to take. It can be not nice, but sometimes in elite sport, those conversations have to happen. And that's why I think makes Sarina special, is that she knew how to have those conversations, but she did have a beautiful way of doing it at the same time, from my experience. And, Mary's had maybe a different experience. But for me, there's very few managers that will give you that clarity. And I feel like you need that in elite sport.
And perhaps this is part of the reason why there's been such in-depth discourse around this, because Mary is unbelievably popular. She's someone that was at the very peak of her powers and was quite a dominant force in the sport for a couple of years. And then Sarina also, at the peak of her powers as a manager as well, goes out and delivers again. And you've just got really two counter discussion points that probably have merit on both sides, and naturally it invites people into the conversation and invites people to have an opinion. One of those people has been Sonia Bompastor. She's come out and said that with what I read in terms of the comments coming from Mary Earps, it's not acceptable to not show respect to your teammates or managers. We're talking about Hannah, but I also want to raise my voice for Sarina. When you use some words about someone who won the Euros 3 times in a row, you should probably think about it before you speak. If you look at what Hannah said in her previous comments about Mary Earps, then what Mary is saying about her now, one of them is class and Hannah is the class one. So fairly strong comments there from Sonia Bompastor as well, who, of course, we should make it clear, is managing Hannah Hampton and is very much... Hannah is her number one as well. But no uncertain terms there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what women supporting women looks like. And she's worked for Hannah for over a year now. And she's a day in, day out. And she obviously can clearly see, like all of us, what Sarina has achieved in her career as well. And also, she knows what an elite environment looks like and how you protect that elite environment as well. And you protect your players and you protect fellow managers, I feel. It's an environment where you want to protect each other, I feel. So I thought that was almost like a mic drop moment for Sonia Bompastor. I thought it was very well spoken. Very well spoken.